Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning. Good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And oh my gosh, we are going to have a heck of a discussion today. And I'm going to tell you, I've been doing this a really long time. Actually, I was doing it before we had podcasting. I was on the radio. I've had a lot of absolutely fabulous guests, and I'm not pulling your leg on this one. When I read my guest bio, I was like, oh, wow. Just a little bit intimidated because it is such an impressive bio. So first of all, please join me in welcoming Dr. Anthony Simmons to our program today. Welcome, Dr. Simmons. How are you?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me. It's such an honor to be here.
Perfect. Well, let me go ahead and tell people about you, and then we'll jump into this. So hailing from Goodwater, Alabama, where he graduated valedictorian and an all-state football player, Dr. Anthony Simmons is a retired Navy captain who served 28 years as a surface warfare officer, where he commanded 3 ships and a destroyer squadron. He also worked in human resources and in the Pentagon on the staffs of the Chairman and Joint Chiefs and Naval Operations as a strategic planner and resource officer. He is the author of the book, Champion Organizational Wellness, a thorough and enlightening guide to help leaders to coach and train future leaders. He holds a doctorate degree in strategic leadership from Regent University, a master's in mechanical engineering from Naval Postgraduate School, a master's in military operational art and science from Air University, and a bachelor's degree in robotics from Austin Peay State University. He is a member of the Austin Peay Austin Peay's Military Hall. I knew when I said it was wrong. He is a member of the Austin Peay's Military Hall of Fame class of 2023. And not, because he's not done yet, he is the founder and president of Sixth Gear Consulting, LLC. Well, first and foremost, Dr. Simmons, thank you for your service. This is just incredibly impressive, and I am so honored to have you.
Thank you. What an honor to be here.
Well, I always like to know how it is that people got to where they are today. So tell us a little bit more about it.
It starts with the foundation and surrounding yourself with the right people. Just watching people that have done greatness in life and just identifying and appreciating your gifts. And I was always curious. I'd like to thank my parents, the late Donald Simmons and Mary Simmons. He was married for 58 years. I lost my father a couple of years ago, but they worked hard together to sacrifice, for their kids. I was the middle kid of 5. And I had one brother, an older sister, and 2 younger sisters there. And we had a really strong family tree there with my uncles. And we spent a lot of time farming. I didn't tell a lot of people that I grew up in the summer, mostly farming. And in wintertime, we did a lot of logging. And I had a really strong work ethic and a sense of responsibility that was instilled in me. And then I coupled that with the community. Goodwater was a working class community, and people embraced each other, looked out for the betterment of the kids. And last but not least, you will see as I dedicated my book to the late Mr. Robert J. Armour. He was the principal there at Goodwater. I had Mr. Armour from all the way through school. I had him for 11 years.
I love it.
Yeah, so he had to go through a Supreme Court system in Alabama to get the principalship of the high school. So it was a moratorium that was held when I transitioned over from the elementary school over to the, back then it was junior high and high school. So he had both the junior high and high school. And he just always saw a lot in me and he invested in me. And Mr. Armour went to Fisk University up in Nashville, Tennessee. And he father asked him to come back to Alabama and, as an educator, and he made that sacrifice to come back and, invest in the community. And I started a scholarship in his name, the Robert J. Memorial Scholarship.
Oh, I
So,
love it.
yeah, so and I authored it and I worked with his family and some other civic leaders there. So that was it. It was just the underpinning the foundation and having people that had a vested interest in me.
So why'd you decide to have a career in the Navy?
That's always very interesting. When I went back for Austin Peay Military Hall of Fame, uh, it was the guy there, Ted Crozer, uh, Jr. He was there when I was at Austin Peay. His dad, Ted Crozer Sr., was the mayor of Clarksville. But Ted Crozer Sr. was the commander at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and I was once reading Colin Powell's book, and he worked Ted Crozer Sr. when he was in that Fort Campbell, Kentucky. But anyways, I always would see the ROTC unit there, Army only. We didn't have Navy.
Okay.
Had a couple of teammates that was in the unit, and they recruited me heavily. And I had zero interest in the military.
Okay.
And I was all about, just trying to do well academically. But even though they did pursue me because I was doing pretty well in school.
Right. Yeah. They want those strong academics.
And they like athletes as well. So anyways, I went back this fall and he was like, "How did we miss you?" I said, "You guys didn't. You tried." But after I finished college, what happens that's why I really have kids to look closely when you do sports and athletics. We focus, on the athletic aspect of it. And I just didn't do much in the off season to really grow my portfolio, by way of experience and what have you. And so I graduated. I had a lot of education, but was not qualified, for taking on some of the jobs that I had envisioned. And I had some friends, primarily my fraternity brothers from Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. I went to a convention with down at Tallahassee, Florida, and I met a lot of guys out of Redstone Arsenal up in Huntsville that happened to be career Army officers. And they said, "What you need to do with your background is you just need to join the military for at least 4 years and bolster your credentials, get some experience there, and then things will be a lot better. You have a lot more opportunities, especially with you not doing a co-op, no intern." So I took that on board, and it just happened to be reading the paper one day when I was at Goodwater. I was doing some community stuff, primarily working with the student athletes around the town, and I read the newspaper. It said, "Join Navy Aviation. All you need is 2 years of education." And so I called down and a 2.5 grade point average. So I called
and you
down
definitely had that.
Yeah, so I called down to Montgomery recruiting center down there, and I keep this short. So the guy I talked with, he was like, what's your credentials? I said, "Oh man," he said, "Well, you qualify for the nuclear engineering program in the Navy." So I went down, I took a trip down to Charleston, South Carolina, and did all the requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So there was another guy in the recruiting office that was recruiting for surface warfare. So I had a surface warfare recruiter and a nuclear type recruiter. They was like tag teaming me. They was so like calling
they
me,
weren't letting you out.
Yeah, but they was like calling me behind each other back. So and I said that nuke stuff's a little much, and the nuclear, because mostly was submarine types, and I decided I didn't want to have much to do with that. So
you want to be above the water.
Exactly. So when I learned about the surface community, that's okay. Why not give it a try? In fact, the guy chased me down. He came to my hometown. Goodwater is about 45 minutes to an hour, and he was somewhat, and it's small. It was about 3,000 people back then. Now it's only probably 1,500 people. And everyone was, "Hey, Simmons, this guy in this white car with Navy on it riding around looking for you." I was sort of dodging him. It was a Friday, and who wants to go down to Montgomery? And I had to take the officer aptitude rating exam. He said, "Well, what got me?" He said, "Well, you come down to take the exam. You don't have to sign up. You can quit anytime. Just at least take the exam.
Just see."
That's another step." So now it's January. Long story short, I was enrolled at Officer Candidate School, Newport, Rhode Island. So then that's how that started. So and I call it blind luck, with some people say, "Oh, it was your destination." So it worked out. So that's how it really came about. So the gentleman's name was Preston Jenkins, and I always remember him to this day. He was a Navy surface warfare officer as well. So that's how the Navy came about. Yeah,
I love it. And it's and obviously an extremely distinguished career. And so it's and the stories you could probably tell when we weren't recording, right? But it is, when I'm thinking about the military, one of the things, and I was thinking about this as I was reading your book, which again is called Championing Organization Wellness. I don't get enough letters in there. Championing Organization Wellness was, we always think of the military and any branch pretty much. And for now, my father was Army. But we always think of the person in charge. And notice I'm not saying leader. The person in charge says jump, and everybody says how high. But you are so much more than that because you were a leader. And I loved reading the foreword in your book from someone who had served under you, and he described what you were like as a leader. So kind of tell us a little bit about how that came about, because you really were such an inspiration to those who served under you.
Yeah, that was Command Master Chief Leon Walker. He was my senior enlisted advisor there in the USS Lassen. I had command, and I still talk with him quite often. Such a great guy, so I definitely want to, attribute that to him. And he really was a key to my success story. I like the way you talk leadership. I'm into servantship, and I coined that term because we oftentimes talk about, well, I'm a servant leader, this and that, but I see, that's sort of a paradoxical, somewhat of a oxymoron, if you will. And so it's all about serving people. And that's, making the investment to make those around you better. But to look at our makeup, who we really are as people in life. And I always find myself throughout my formative years, and primarily in Pop Warner football, I was always a quarterback, and I was a point guard in high school in basketball. I played quarterback on the football team, but because of my size, I'm only 5'8", I said I want to be a running back.
You were not going to be a linebacker.
Nor a quarterback, because I was not tall enough. So I always try to move over into the running back position, but coaches said, nope, you're going here. And then basketball, I always wanted to shoot the ball. And I didn't want to be the floor leader because I just want to, catch it and shoot it. He said, nope, you're going to the one. You're the point guard.
You're the point guard.
Yeah. So, and what that boils down to is how you really influence people. We used to be in a world of command and control. And Stephen M. Covey, I know I just wrote a book recently called Trust and Inspire. I've always read his father's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. But this whole Trust and Inspire, it's all about how do you breathe into people, life into people. You make them better, from working with who they are. And I have a couple of teammates. In fact, from high school, I was talking to one this week here, and he was a sophomore. And we always have challenges when you have people surrounding you. Some people just have tons of talent, but don't always realize how talented they really are. And I always felt I could just encourage people and just get the best out of them. And I still have those stories, today when I impacted, those people in those moments of influence. So I thought that was always the best. I thought it was my innate ability to really teach. I do my Clifton Strength Finders. And, I'm a lifelong learner. And also I was built to teach, and work with people. So it's just a gift I have. And it was just me realizing it. And the Navy gave me the platform, to pursue higher education and to work with people across, different landscapes, cultures, and what have you, in addition to traveling over 63 countries, engaged in different countries and doing team building and what have you. So everything just been a joy, and stuff that I had a chance to do, it just really cultivated who I really am as a person. So that's why my vision on being a servant.
I love that. And you definitely are what I would define as a leader, because several of the things, lifelong learner, helping those who are, around you, being that servant, because there is a very big difference to me between being the person in charge and a leader. Now, it can be the same person. But it is so interesting. I mean, clearly you were a leader from, when you were little, because the quarterback and the point guard are the leaders of the teams, at least for the offense. So you didn't know you're talking to somebody who knew her sports. But it is something that, my thought was, you had such a good role model when you were younger that really did set the tone. And, in your principle, because I think it is such a challenge for any young person to kind of get lost. But when they have a teacher, a principal, a minister, whoever, who is kind of that guiding light, it makes such a difference.
Yeah, so I would say I add a little to that story. Speaking of my principal there, I remember sports, and we always felt, oh, man, he doesn't like athletes. He just makes it so hard for us. He changed the criteria in sports, from having a D to be able to play. Everyone had to have a C. And not only
Ooh.
that, he changed the grading scale. It was no longer a 70. It was like, I think 74 was a requirement. No,
He's
70.
making you
Yeah.
earn it.
Yeah. So, and that was like, oh man, but what it did also, it forced me and other teammates to help the ones that was not so academically inclined. So we had, it just taught us leadership. It taught us the importance of education more so than anything. And our high school had that reputation, for being a student and then an athlete next. So we kept that balance there. And the guys in my era did pretty well, because of, what he invested in us. So I thought found that to be very, distinguished in that regard. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I love that. And we didn't talk about this before the program, but I went to the University of Colorado, and we have a really shiny coach there, right? So we have Deion Sanders, who is the coach. And even though I'm in Atlanta, we still have our season tickets. We're just that type of fan. And he has been so impressive to me because of his philosophy on how he is leading that team. And one of the things that he said multiple things, but like when his very first meeting with the players, he told him, he said, now you all are student athletes, and you will remember that, because most of you will not turn pro. Most of them are not his son, right? But he said, most of you will not turn pro. He said, so my job is to turn you into, or help you to develop into young men who will, lead beneficial, successful lives. And he said, so y'all will sit in the front rows of your classes, and you will participate, and we will do pop inspections. And he said, but more importantly, he said, it's on me too. The coach, Coach Prime, as they call him, right? He said, if anybody wants to know the GPA of any of my players, I will know it. He said, because I think it's that important. And it came out a couple of weeks ago that he had received a couple emails from teachers who were not happy with his players. And he called a team meeting, and he called those kids out by name. And he said, this is not acceptable. When I have teachers saying you are disruptive, you're this, you're that, it's not acceptable. He said, you are young leaders of your communities. And he said, you will toe the line. And I loved that, because, he really is now, he's got these really flashy sons, right? The one that flashes his $90,000 Rolex and drives up in the Rolls. But that kid he knows. I mean, like he has said, I'm a student first, and especially, a pro athlete, your career is pretty limited. And so you have to be able to go on after that. It is almost in some ways kind of like the military. I mean, many people, when they serve, they don't serve for, they don't turn it into a lifetime career. They serve and then they go on to something else. So it's, what are those skills that you're learning there that are going to carry on into life?
I have two pieces that connect to what you're saying there. First of all, my daughter plays basketball for Longwood. She's a freshman there. And the head coach at Longwood is good friends with the lady that happens to be the associate director of academics at Colorado. So I was at a game, and I saw this Colorado. I said, "Why we got these Colorado sweatshirts on?" Then her friend said, "It's not me, it's her." So I talked with her, and they were like, "Yeah, I'm associate." And I said, "Well, I got another friend from Austin Peay that he's over player development." She said, "No, you're kidding me." And so I threw his name out
It's
there.
a small world.
And she let me FaceTime it. So I have two contacts there. But it's going to academics. I just read a John Thompson book recently. I Came as a Shadow. And I tell you, that book was so breathtaking. And, he was at Georgetown. You could imagine Georgetown University, Washington, D.C., a lot of kids from certain demographics, some people come from socially maybe challenged, backgrounds and socioeconomically challenged. And how did they really matriculate at Georgetown? So he managed all of that. He was one of the first programs to implement what we call your academic advisor. And it was someone he actually met at one of the high schools there, because he held kids to a high standard when he was teaching high school there, and he was trying to get the kid to come to practice. No, they stand behind because they're not on top of their academics. So when he got the job at Georgetown, who better to hire than that particular lady?
And Georgetown ain't nothing to sneeze at.
Exactly. So that was, and that is so critical. That's why it troubles me now with some people, kids, not putting the emphasis on, academics and athletics and keeping that perspective. I always felt going to school to play college sports, there's time management, a lot of lessons to be learned there. But I always felt that you go there to get education, as you said, not many people are going to go to the next level. In fact, I had a teammate that went to the Redskins as a free agent. He was like 6'6", 320 pounds, but he left school in January and got 12 reps while he was with the Redskins. He got pushed back there, and he had a kid, and he was stacking the shelves at Walmart at night, and that was it. And he had missed the opportunity to graduate that spring. So I knew then, that's just really high risk. But the bottom line is, you really have to. I said, going there playing football, that's my job. But going to school, getting my lesson, that's my paycheck. So I got to walk away with a degree. So if you don't go to class and focus on your school, that's like going to work without picking up your paycheck on Friday. So that was how I summed it up. So and then Austin Peay was on. We was all on degree programs, which I enjoyed, and that was sort of unheard of. In the mid 80s, you just couldn't go there and take any class just to stay eligible. Once after you're there for 2 years, you had to be headed towards a degree. So I really credit Austin Peay a lot to that regard.
Right. Yeah. And you and I could have a totally different discussion about NIL. I'm just, yeah.
Same here.
But I can also understand, I wish that, and I digress. I wish that college sports hadn't become so much like a business, but it has.
Yes.
But it also, schools have the opportunity to still, show those kids financial planning classes, things like that. I worked with a former CU football player who lives here in Georgia now on, and he'd hoped to turn pro and didn't. Now he's played some in some of the other leagues, but, was just not going to be in the cards for him. Played safety in a year when there were far too many safeties that turned pro. And, but I worked with him on his LinkedIn profile, and he was telling me, he said, oh yeah, we had people who came in to the athletic department, and everybody, all the student athletes were supposed to attend. And he said, but it was like at 9:00 at night because just they had such long, busy days. He said, so we didn't pay attention. And you hear about these kids now, who are making the money, and somebody like Caitlin Clark, she's going to have a good financial planner, right? Because she's got a pretty good head on her shoulders. But so many other kids don't have that. And, and I think it's important that the universities teach them, here's how to do financial planning and things like that.
That's true. That's it. And I got to tell my daughter, she plays and they get a stipend and she get other benefits. And, she did really well in high school.
Of course she did.
But I just tell her, just don't develop any past spending habits. Life is about a progression, because we have to, keep that in mind. So I teach her that, you ask yourself, how much money do you think you really need, for a lifestyle? Just don't spend it because it's there.
Right.
And she appreciates it, but a lot of I say that because I've seen just the opposite with a lot of kids. It ain't what you make, is how you really manage it. So so we can pick up some bad habits that's short-lived. It's hard to sustain certain amount of pay scale, and I did the same in the military. I kept my lifestyle throughout. Even as my rank increased there, and to this day, I just don't have many challenges because of the way I I'm pretty much a steward. I'm like, my dollars. Yes.
Yeah. And it's learning all of that, whether it's, mom, dad, the military, your coaches, all of those, learning how to be a good grown up is maybe the easiest way to put that.
That's true.
But we don't get that,
No.
you know, and so, you know, but you, and it's funny because as I was thinking about this, I was thinking again about your book where, you know, you are talking about leadership, but you also talk in the book about how important it is to actually coach people. And that is, you know, how you are working with them to help them better themselves. And you talk about the, you know, so talk about that, and then talk about the triangle of, you know, of that you have in your book that you discuss.
You know, first, I'm gonna touch the foundational pieces, and it's about self-assess. You know, look at, you know, what some of the opportunities I had. Also, I had challenges, and with that in life, it comes a lot of trial and error, and that's the most important part. And in order to grow and help other people, first you got to continue to grow yourself, and that's the foundational piece. And I use this coaching triangulation. Some people get my book misconstrued because they see a pyramid. I said, no, it's not a pyramid. It's a equal-sided triangle. We always use triangle in navigation to fix ship's position, and
right.
get those.
That's how you knew where you were, right?
It's at 100% accurate. So I always look at where we're in life. You know, we got the trifecta, right? We have, you know, we use the word leader. I call them leaders, leadership coach. Then you have aspiring leaders. I don't believe in fallers. You know, we're in a world of co-equals now. People want to go and do things. Then you look at the organization. So you want to impact all of it, you know. So this whole championing organizational wellness, how do you come up with this term? It's based on experience. Throughout the Navy, there's been tons of initiatives. Going back to the Admiral Zoom Walk back in the 70s, he put mechanisms or tools in place to help diversify the Navy, make opportunities for everybody. I had leaders, I'm gonna call his name, I got my Mike Mullen. You'll see him, me on a bit picture with him when I worked on the Joint Staff. Probably the best leader I ever had. You know, he came out of Hollywood. His father, you know, was what do you call it? Was when you help people promote.
An agent.
Yeah, not an agent. That was another one. When you work directly with people, I can't. And not a journalist, but one of those terms.
Oh yeah,
yeah. But it's slipping me. Right. He worked in Hollywood, and so Admiral Mullen was always really big on pushing opportunities for everybody, you know, across everything, and developing and growing. He was a natural coach as well. So I looked at those opportunities. Then when you have certain leadership come in, they throw those tools out the window and say, no, everybody got to make it on their own. This is a fair organization. I don't need any initiatives, you know, to inspire and encourage the environment for everyone. So we always got this ebb and flow. People always doing organization development, but how do we sustain that? What tools we put in place to keep those initiatives in place so they don't have an ebb and flow? So and that whole triangulation was built on wellness. This is a combination of organization development plus organization sustainment. So that gives you organizational wellness. And what this triangle does, it puts you in where you have to identify who you are as a person. And then you have to look at your blind spots, you know, the out person, you know, versus the won't self. And then you get through that. And then you, on this right side of that triangle, you have the aspiring leader, and left side. Then how do you connect? You know, like I always told people when I was a leader that halfway is not the same for everyone. It depends on their background, their status, you know, what resources they had access to. So you have to go a little further. Sometimes halfway may be over to someone's front door. You don't know. Only requirement I have is for you to be willing to get off the porch. Okay. So as long as you're willing, I'm okay. I can come all the way to your door. I can grab you. So that's fine. So you do that through once you determine where you are and find your location by assessing who you are and bettering yourself. And that's going to be continuous because generations change, cultures change, you know, the landscape, we're in the virtual world. So you got to continue to self-assess. They used to come through that, you know, all self. Because we say, well, what is it? You know, there's everything is based on ethics, right? So sometimes the irony is, your ethnicity is your beliefs and your values. What if you deal with someone across another group? And America is full of microcosm cultures. So we have to be sometimes meet people on their terms and their ground. So then you have a coaching conversation, and that allows you to really connect, not yes and no questions. You know, you have to ask open-ended questions, to do intuitive listening. So you're trying to let that person draw out their own introspective and let you know, let them identify. It's almost like inspiring them, breathing life into them. And after that, they say, how do we get here? You know, as a group here, you have to suspend judgment. And then they design their course of action. Then you commit to supporting them once they design their course of action. So once that's the foundational piece at the bottom of that triangle, which is self-assessing, overcoming blind spots, and then the coaching conversation. When you link wherever on the bottom of that triangle, then once you guys link, then you walk up the middle of that triangle together. We get your means in place, and those are your ways. And that's being kind of culturally agnostic, where we don't matter what culture we're from. We don't talk and everything now. I'm culturally astute or what have you. And then also, I used the word empowerment when I wrote the book, but some people misconstrue that term also, like this triangle and the pyramid. So I like to use the term now, enable or encourage, in an organization where I want to have a flat organization. So flat is no good. You have to empower people. They have to be elevated and flat. So you do that through democratic leadership, through servantship, et cetera, et cetera. Those are the tools. And those are my ways for now, both my leader, because I'm going to continue to learn as a leader from the aspiring leader, that we're going to walk in lockstep, and sync all the way to the top of this triangle. And once we're at the top of that triangle, the zenith, the organization was at its optimal position. The coach, leader, and the aspiring leader, all the optimal position, all three of us. Then it's a closed loop system. And now, as the leader or the coach, I can walk away and I can feed that aspiring leader back into my position.
Because
that
they're going to continue.
Going to continue. And that's why I look at situational leadership. If you look across the situational leadership model, it's what are you? Are you a directing, supporting, coaching, or you are delegated to this? I said, it's a continuum. I said, I start out as directing because I don't know that person. Once we get to know each other, then I become more coaching, more two-way conversation. Then a little further into the game, I'm supporting, I'm hands off. At some point, I done built a new me, the next aspiring leader. So it's the game, I sit back and relax and just watch them. Yeah. But that my mother and father was a publicist. That's what the word I was trying to get.
That was it. Yes.
Publicist. But that's how that triangle works, though, and in that way, if you use my model, it doesn't matter what someone's beliefs and values are. They can go to an organization, take that model, and they can keep, the process going, through sustaining, whatever initiatives they had in place there. And there are some tools I used when I was in command that elevated my organization to, battle efficient, ships. And I had tons of sailors that was just really had the highest promotion rate in the Navy one year when I was out in Japan. And the last one, I had one sailor who was unheard of, became Sailor of the Year.
I read that. I was like, oh my gosh. And it was really a woman.
A woman, yes. Yeah. So it's really unheard of for someone coming from a ship. But I always put emphasis, within the organization, within the crew. I would take what they call instructors to the to see what means, so the kids can get education, get opportunities to grow while they was there, because you can't get that time back, but at least you can grow professionally. Then some PACE instructors say, well, the Navy don't really put emphasis on the kids having opportunities. I'm out there, I'm just sitting there doing nothing because the kids are working so hard they don't get a chance to go to class. That's up for me right there. I'm going to make sure that I provide the opportunity for them to go to class. And I said, they almost like going what you were saying earlier about Dion. If a kid misses class because they boss or whoever supervisor they had work, then they need to come through me, because that's a priority. We have 24 hours out here a day on this shift. There's no reason the kid can't go to class for a couple hours there. So that was the kind of things I think you have to really do, to make sure that you're doing right and putting the tools in place. And my command philosophy, I talk about, professional development. People talk about communication, just good practices. And I kept it consistent. I said, if you want to see me, read my command philosophy. That's who I am. If someone getting in trouble, you're not doing right, you're not taking care of your people, then we're going to go before our disciplinary board with this philosophy here. We're going to read it. And did you do the things in here? If you did what was in here, then we're fine. But if you don't, then, it's a process file. So I kept things pretty simple and practical for the crew. And it worked out. It just made being a captain really, really, very pleasant,
Right.
Yes.
I love that, but I love the continual learning that you encouraged, because in so many businesses, and I don't care, what size they are, they say, oh, we don't have, say, a scholarship program or an education incentive or even internal training, because we don't want them to get so smart that they leave.
I know, that's one of those are the pressing issues we have in this world, or I call leadership upside down. You got a lot of people actualize to people and they fear people. They don't want to teach them because they're afraid they're going to displace them. But it goes back to Maslow hierarchy of needs. You have to be actualized and feel comfortable where you are in order to do well in those
Mhm.
positions. And you mentioned earlier when about the leader there, what is a real leader? They got to be
Mhm.
someone who's really, really confident in who
Mhm.
they are, so they can look out for the best interests of
Mhm.
others. So if you don't have those, those personal attributes, it's a
Mhm.
little challenging. That's why I call this upside down model, where you got
Mhm.
people in leadership positions that's not capable of leading, and also standing on the shoulders of the people they're surrounded by.
Mhm.
And I did ask a business owner once, I said, I want to do a strat survey to see where you are strategically, with your
Ah.
people, and make
Mhm.
sure what your strategy and what they're doing is
Mhm.
alignment. And that's one
Mhm.
thing. Now we have to do strategic thinking and strategic acting in the
Mhm.
same space now. We have to
Mhm.
co-create. He said, I don't want to train my next competition. I
Mhm.
say everything in life is about risk. You can't
Mhm.
look at it that way. It's your next competition. Just giving a
Mhm.
person an opportunity to go out there.
Mhm.
But if you do right by people and you're doing stuff that they embrace, they'll
Mhm.
stick with you. People they leave jobs now because they're not just there for compensation or whatever. You
Right.
got to be
Yeah,
something they're
they leave
passionate
because of
about.
bad management.
Bad management.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's got to be something they're passionate about. And
Mhm.
you got to connect with them.
Mhm.
And that's another piece I've been doing this. I said you got to act to connect. There. So
Mhm.
sometimes, in this whole optimal book I'm just reading
Mhm.
with Daniel Goleman. So now you have to show warmth, before
Mhm.
competency.
Mhm.
So I've emphasized that, and I got this
Mhm.
process because it was in this DEI world. So it really
Mhm.
ain't about DEI now, because it's too many terms there, and people take
Mhm.
those terms and twist them around and find something negative.
Mhm.
Let's just connect and appreciate people.
Right.
That's my whole
Mhm.
part. We got to, act like
Mhm.
we all belong, So
Mhm.
I said, how do you act though,
Mhm.
so how do you connect? I said, you got to do it through an act.
Mhm.
And my acting is, first you got to show appreciation,
Mhm.
you have to communicate, and you have to demonstrate trust, and that
Mhm.
allows you to connect. And you have
Mhm.
to be transparent in that regard.
Mhm.
So
Right.
yes.
Yeah. And you mentioned DEI, and you talk about, working with different cultures in your book. And I think that's so important because, first of all, the world is a big melting pot,
It
right? And
is,
if
yes.
we just focus on one certain demographic,
Yeah,
then how can we serve others?
that's true.
But more importantly, we have to have others around us and learn from them.
That's true.
But you have to recognize it. And you talk in your book about the fact that one of the things we have to understand is what those differences are, because sometimes we have to change maybe how we're going to communicate with them. And I think of it in a lot of ways, more along the lines of age, because like for me, I like email's good, voicemail's good too. Somebody a lot younger likes text, right? And so if I'm gonna, and it gets a little complicated when you're dealing with team members that you've got a lot of different, because this person might need a text, this person might need a phone call, this person. But if you're a good leader, you're going to communicate with them in the way that they communicate best.
100% accurate. And that's why I use the cultural intelligence,
Mhm.
that's tied into that chapter. That comes, as one thing on Navy, I would say, go back and look at the sail of the Great White Fleet, right? We go
Mhm.
around where we do diplomacy. That's,
Mhm.
that's what the Navy, that's the only service, not knocking the other service that the Constitution requires, to stand in Navy. The
Mhm.
rest of the services stand up during wartime. But that
Mhm.
has a lot to
Mhm.
do with diplomacy and keeping the sea lanes
Mhm.
open, and deterrence.
Yeah,
President
you
Kennedy
like to never have to actually do
bioweapon.
warfare.
That's
Mhm.
what President Kennedy, that was his motto. He said, my forces should be so sufficient I
Mhm.
should never have to fire a shot.
Mhm.
So that when I was a young ensign, my first captain, I would do the West Africa training cruise.
Mhm.
And he would take an officer from the wardroom, a young
Mhm.
ensign, in fact, I have a picture in my book in Nigeria, Lagos, and he would take
Mhm.
us on his calls,
Mhm.
and teach us diplomacy, teach
Mhm.
us different cultures.
Mhm.
And that's one reason I wrote this book, because I
Mhm.
felt that how as a Navy we go
Mhm.
throughout these countries and we do
Mhm.
a lot of different teamwork. We go do community
Mhm.
relations stuff, team building, a lot of different active sporting events and a goodwill projects.
Mhm.
And then before we operate, we have to understand their culture, because
Mhm.
the words don't mean the same in every culture. So you
Right.
go in and you engage and
Mhm.
interact with people. And so that way, when you come together to
Mhm.
operate, we're all on the same page. And
Mhm.
that was always important, even
Mhm.
if it meant spending a couple of days in ports, going to events. So I
Mhm.
went to Shanghai, China,
Mhm.
back when I was over in this work commanding out of Japan. And they took me to their culture events, they took me to, and they
Mhm.
was like, I know America is, always a democratic society, and they
Mhm.
were a little on the communist,
Mhm.
side, but they was really trying to, transition, but at
Right.
least they wanted us to understand their perspective, as well as we understand their perspective. And that's how you have to, that's the whole piece about connecting. You don't need a halfway point, no matter where you are. But I think sometimes we
Right.
take that for granted in our own country. I think sometimes we judge people and measure them based on the little rice bowls, or this just the small space that we live
Right.
in. So and also what cross generations, I've been doing a lot of studying recently on the different generations, and to look at the generation X, that took place, I think, from 45 to 65. And I'm sorry,
I know.
no, the
They're
baby boomers.
younger.
Baby boomers, yeah, you had
Mhm.
traditions. What they had the boomers from 45 to 65, and then you went from 65 to 83 is Generation X, which is my generation. And I was looking at the millenniums, that goes from 83 to 98, and then from 98 up to the late
They're the
2020s.
Y. I don't know.
Yeah,
I
you
get
got the
lost
Y.
in all of
It's
it.
it's the Y, it's a Z. Millenniums and Y are the same. Now it's a Z, or they call them the COVID generation. So I studied them really closely to understand how to interact with them, because they do things differently. But we just have to know how to appreciate them. They work just as hard as we work. They get exposed to a lot of different aspects. They don't want to be lectured to. They just want us to be
Right.
role models and set examples. But they are just as, if not more valuable than we are. We just have to understand how to relate. I was in a residential course when I was doing my doctorate, and I overheard some of my fellow classmates said, it was in the medical field. I just wish I put older people that's been around in this room and the other ones in that room. I said, why? Because I don't want to see them bicker back and forth. I said, no, that's not the way to do it. That's, they both got something to offer each other. That's your position you in. You got to facilitate that, and so that's not the way to do it. It's to separate them out. So
Oh yeah. Oh
you have to
yeah.
have them to appreciate each other.
Right.
Yes.
And as you said, learning is, always, it's just ongoing.
Yes.
And from a business perspective, we have to learn to work with other cultures. Before we moved here, I taught at Metro State University in Denver, and I taught communications, right? Makes sense.
Okay.
And I remember one of the students, and this was one of the classes where we had it was really pretty diverse. And the cool thing about Metro State was it was not, it was a commuter college, so no dorms. But it meant that we had kids that were 18 and students that were 65, 70 years old. And so it was fun. I really loved it. But I remember we were talking with this young man, and I had him give a presentation to the class, and he was Japanese. And he's, one of the things we were talking about was business protocol. And he said, what an American does, if you hand them the business card, we don't even look at it. We just toss it aside, right? Or we stick it in a pocket if we're at a networking thing or whatever. And he said that's very bad in Japanese culture, because the business card is an extension of them.
Yeah.
And so when you're given a business card, you should, and it's funny because now I've learned that this works with everybody, right? And it's actually even better. So you take it and you look at it and you read it and you honor it, and then you put it, you don't cram it into your pocket or anything like that. You place it in a place of honor. And for me, one of the things that taught me was, okay, I'm really going to, whoever it is, whatever culture or any of that, I'm going to read their name, I'm going to read their company, I'm going to read their title, and it's going to sink in a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, but I love that, because it was something that he taught us that then went everywhere.
That's it is critically important. And I have been interacting with different cultures, and that's very, very true. They very formal when they pass you the card, and you should be you should be similar. And and as you just tuck it away, you should tuck away in something that's real formal. After you do take a close look at it. So that's great. Some of these things, it's been a while since I've done, so thanks for bringing me up to speed.
Yeah, I mean, some of the other things we learned, and of course now I don't remember some of them. Like different colors mean different things in different cultures.
Yes.
Green was one of the ones. We tend to think of it here as green as in money, but other cultures think of it as in earth, right? And some and all sorts of things. And so I thought that was very fascinating to learn that. And yeah, I mean, the world is getting smaller and smaller, and I think especially because of COVID. We network with people from around the world every day, and we don't have a second thought about it.
Yeah, you're right. We have to, it always bother people. Like we go to other countries in the US
Hmm.
and we expect everyone to speak English. And,
Hmm.
it's
Right.
it's offensive sometimes. It's
Hmm.
like, how do we have those
Hmm.
expectations? But you're right. We have to not learn how
Hmm.
to be so ethnocentric,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
be respectful and honest for other people's
Right.
positions or dispositions. Yes,
Well, and they, we might not be perfect, but they're going to appreciate the effort.
the effort. Yeah,
When I went to Italy, I learned a very small mattering, smattering
yeah,
of Italian. I mean, like I could ask where the bathroom was, right? That's a really
yes.
important thing, and some other things. But they told me how much they appreciated that I was trying to make the effort.
Oh, yes.
And and it was great fun, and we waved a lot and gestured a
Yeah,
lot. And every once in a while I got the wrong thing that I ordered. And it was
yeah,
like, don't think that's what I wanted, but it's what I said. I had potato chip pizza. That
yeah.
was very interesting.
That's good.
Somewhere I
Well,
messed something up when I ordered.
well, I was in Guam 2 weeks ago, and I would go to the gym every morning. Had these young girls working at the front desk,
Mhm.
and I learned a couple where how to say hello. I said half
Mhm.
a day.
Mhm.
Then every day I go in there, and I was bushing it up, and they said,
Mhm.
"No, it's half a day, half a day, half a day." I said, "Okay, I'm trying."
Mhm.
So I practice every morning I go in there.
Mhm.
They said, "Okay, now we're gonna show you how to say thank you." So then I was able
Mhm.
to teach. Oh, yeah, I don't
Mhm.
know. I can't remember what they taught me, but they just
Mhm.
made them so excited.
Mhm.
They were so
Mhm.
happy to see me every
Right.
morning.
Mhm.
So they gave me a little speech lesson
Mhm.
when I walked through the gym, and it was good. I
Mhm.
think the fact that I had interest, it really,
Right.
it
Well,
kind of
and it
like
shows
excited.
respect.
Yes, yes,
Mhm. Yeah,
yes,
and that you're honoring them and honoring their culture. And I think that's just so important.
yes.
Well, when I was reading your bio, obviously incredibly accomplished. What are the things that you are the most proud of?
We talk, right, about making people better,
Mhm.
and I always ask people every day, ask yourself, what can you do to make those people around you better? The same fashion that
Mhm.
Kennedy always said, what you do, to stand up for something that's bigger than
Mhm.
yourself. So it's really about people. What makes me really proud is when I see people that I have impacted
Mhm.
and I see them doing well. And most of them are doing better than I am,
Mhm.
for it's ascending the ladder.
Mhm.
And I felt that's how life should be.
Mhm.
It's like my parents made it
Right.
better for me.
It's
And
better each
yeah,
time.
I am
Mhm.
who I am because of my parents. They was unselfish. They wanted their kids to have more
Mhm.
opportunities, more resources. No, they didn't overindulge us.
Mhm.
They taught us lessons to grow. And I have over 25 of my understudies, and some of them was tough when they was with me because they didn't get it at first, but they're
Mhm.
doing so well now. They always reach out, and just tell me the difference that I made in their life. I've had kids and people I'm still influencing around the
Mhm.
community every day, and that's what really
Mhm.
makes me proud. And just like
Mhm.
now, that's why I do the champion organizational
Mhm.
wellness from one respect, and then my six-skill consultant is about
Mhm.
people, valuing people
Mhm.
skills, learning, getting to know people,
Mhm.
vice, uh, all the stereotypes or false,
Mhm.
perceptions of people.
Mhm.
So that's what really makes me happy, being able to reach people and seeing
Mhm.
people grow and continue to do well in
Mhm.
life. So that's what keeps me afloat, I would like to say.
I love it. I love it. Well, you retire from the military and you start a business. So tell us a little bit more about Six Gear Consulting. How'd you name it that?
I it's common sense, six sense, right?
Hmm.
So I was at Joint Forces Staff College. We had to
Hmm.
get joint qualified as military
Hmm.
officers to learn about how the
Hmm.
other services operate. So we did a thesis. It was an 11-week course, and you have to do a thesis that's throughout. The Navy is always says real. We're replete with leadership
Hmm.
modeling. I recall I was in Air University at Montgomery when 9/11
Hmm.
hit. I was sitting next to a Tunisian, an officer from one of the African countries,
Hmm.
and we talk about all the different leadership modeling. So I've done so much on leadership. I said, I want to do a thesis on something a little bit different. 9/11 it happened. I said, I want to do interorganizational relationships. What does
Ah.
that really mean? How
Hmm.
do people really communicate? I remember the days
Hmm.
when the inception of computers aboard ships, and people walk right past you and they
Hmm.
wouldn't say anything. They go send you an
Hmm.
email, and they wouldn't even tell you they sent it. So I
Right.
said, you know what? I'm just going to turn all the computers off one day, so
Hmm.
force people to talk. That was just me
Ah.
thinking out
Oh
loud, but
no.
I didn't have the
Oh.
I didn't have the
Hmm.
power to do that. But
Uh-huh.
it's all, and that's, well, we cannot neglect technology.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you look at 9/11, it was just tons of information portals that was out there. But what did we apply? And I like to use the example, like, say you got the captain of the ship and you got one of the maybe the deck plate workers, right? So if the deck plate worker walk aboard the ship and we happen to go send you an email and say, hey, we got a fire in this continuous in this particular space. And the captain may say, hey, you know, I had a good time, you know, riding my bike over the weekend. Who email you going to read? It's going to read the captain, right? But the ship's going to burn down, right? So now how do you determine what information you really apply, you know? And so we got tons of it out there. So it's the application information. So I said this whole 6-year thing is it's about common sense, putting the people back into the loop. And also a couple of our warships, we got a automatic weapon system. And I can go in there, hit one button, the ship will fight itself, but it's going to shoot. It's going to shoot indiscriminately.
Right, because the rest of the pieces weren't there.
Yeah, and it's going to run out of weapons before you really can. They're going to probably put extra amount of weapons. So we had a finite number of weapons. So we always hit man in the loop. So as I got to put man back in the loop, I got to put 6 cents back into the loop here. But I said, but I don't want to be a Neanderthal, though. I want to make sure that I want to be on the information highway, but I want to go to 6th gear. I use 6 cents. I want to put my car in overdrive so I don't burn people skills.
Okay,
excess fuel. So that's what this whole 6th gear and this common sense thing is about, really trying to put, you know, the man back into the system. I had this concept, I think, well, in 2017 now. So it's been 7 years and see a lot of stuff on artificial intelligence now, and a lot of metadata, a lot of pieces is coming around now. It was ties back into what I was thinking then. Now I'm being able to apply it more. And just because of some of the, you know, the stuff we're seeing with Chat GPT and certain systems, you know, you got this piece called the OODA loop they use, and these closed loop systems, and you know, you get information is everywhere. Data is there. People overwhelmed with data. So how do you make sense of that data? How do you analyze? It's got to be the human at some point. You got to inject the human being into all of these different, artificial intelligent tools in order to make sense of them, in order to properly orientate yourself, in order to pull the right information. So that's what 6 years is really about. It's really just teaching the basic ground root people skill, blocking and tackling, you know, eye contact, tone of voice, you know, just, you know, the old fashioned way of communicating and valuing the human. I teach British resource management now. For the military city level command, and that's what we talk about: soft skills and team building. You know, and this book, Goldman and Chernis, they talk about social intelligence nowadays is actually more powerful than technical skills. You know, and that's what people are looking at on jobs as they're hiring now. So it just really, you know, came about at the right time there. But it's really to link people. It's about the 6th sense comes, you know, and also value in technology. So that's the gist of it. Yes.
Right. You know, and it is more of a challenge now because we're you know, like you and I right now, we're talking on Zoom. So, you know, we can get a little of our body language, you know, some things like that. But, you know, we are missing some of it because, you know, like, you know, as little kids, that's one of the things we learn, you know, oh, mom's mad, you know, and mom didn't say a word, but we knew mom was mad, right? You know, danger. And, you know, and you just hope she wasn't mad at you. But, you know, it's all of those extra things, even just like tone of voice, you know, how many times we do it every day, right? You read a Facebook post, an email message, something, and you put a different spin on it than the person who wrote it. You know, you make it funny. They meant it to be serious. They meant to be devil's advocate, all of these things. And, you know, but when we're actually in a room speaking to somebody, or, you know, this is not bad, you can pick up a little bit more on that. But I think that's one of the things we're always going to need the people, you know, for everybody who is fussing about AI, it still needs people to be there. You know, I don't want one to drive my car. I mean, you know, you know, I just don't trust it that much. But, you know, I do my blog posts using AI. I start them that way, but then I go back and I make it mine.
You tweak it.
You know, and things like that. And it was funny because I was talking with a friend of mine she has become an AI expert, right? In like 6 months. But I mean, we've had AI for a long time. Anybody that doesn't understand, we've had it for a really long time. But she was saying that, so, you know, Chat GPT is basically Microsoft. I mean, you know, their search engine, they use Bing, all of those things. They're hiring more and more people to be actually the ones who were writing some of this stuff because it needed that personal touch. And so you can, it's, the AI goes out and gets the information, but then the person is who does the work and kind of tweaks it a bit. And I just love that concept.
Yeah, what I always said in a nutshell, I have two pieces I went through. I went through my department head school and surface warfare school in 1997, and the captain of the school came out here, addressed the class. He said, "Look, you guys need to really pay attention, take advantage of this opportunity to learn. It's going to always be an analog world, and never be a digital world. I always need man in the loop." And that was one piece. And we went to all these different digital models on the show. I was a damage control officer and chief engineer in my early years in the Navy in the late 90s. We started going to all these different communication tools and digital printouts. And I always tell we had the old message track where you deliver messages as you do drills. But I said, look here, I said, this technology is great, but it's I see it as a multiplier. It's not an enabler. I said enabler is the human being.
Right.
You have to always have the human element. So we're enablers, but you can do a lot of nice stuff and take it to a maximum level, like I said, and multiply it with artificial intelligence. And I think since what you're just doing right there, though, you put your own, you enabling.
Yeah, I'm like process. That. I would not say that word. So I change it to a word that I would use.
Yes. So that's essentially what that's my take on it. Yes, we are enablers as human beings, artificial intelligence technology is great, but and I remember when I studied robotics, it was a replace of 3D's dirty, dull, and dangerous. And I listened to Elon Musk's book, he was like, everyone want robots to do everything, then they go out there and they go through trial and error and they realize robot, it can't do it. I use robots just to troubleshoot to see why I don't want to use them, like putting the small little intricate, window sills around cars, and that. And that's why you still got people in all these automobile manufacturers, because once again, that was what in 1985 when I was studying robotics, and supposed to replace these dirty, dull, and dangerous assembly line workers. It hasn't done it yet, has it?
Right.
So it's enhancing it and multiplying it, but it doesn't enable building automobiles. So I think that ties into where we are in that regard.
Right. Well, oh my gosh, Anthony, this has been fascinating, and we need to have a conversation again, because this is just so much fun, and we've just scratched the surface on all of this, and so I'd love to have you on again. But until then, tell us more about how do they find you, how do they work with you, and what are the services that you provide?
Yeah. Okay. Well, first, I'm on my website. Please visit it, www.sixgearconsulting.com. And I'm there. And what Six Gear provides, I like to leadership coaching, as we talked about quite often here. And then also I like team development and evolvement. And listen to those words very closely, because most people talk team building, but you got to build individuals first. So you got to develop your team, because everyone is different. You got to connect and link with them. So then you evolve the team. So I get that concept. Then I call it talent management or talent wellness. How do you keep people there? And I like my tools I got in my book, Champion Organizational Wellness, Chapter 8. I was doing cross-functional training, coach protege modeling, and I had people from different backgrounds, different cultures to mentor each other. People bring their mentors to their performance reviews, and I did them more, frequently than most organizations. So that's what the talent, wellness is about, to keep people in place there. I mean, that way your performance appraisal is not a surprise. And the last piece is organization design and strategy. How do you build these models where you actually allow people to grow and be a part of, where you can do strategic thinking and strategic acting in the same space and co-create solutions? Because we're in what we call these buckle environments. I have a guy went to Navy school with Mark Devine, and he came up this time. He's a Navy officer school with. He's a SEAL, and he talked about buckle conditions and he talked about volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous environments. So how do you turn those challenges into opportunities? And that's what my models are doing. And as things are so dynamic externally, some of the tasks you're getting after in life, you have to be able to move swiftly. You got to do that through, enabling people on your team, to think at the same level you're at. So that's my concepts for my services. And like I said, they are available there on sixgearconsulting.com.
And six is spelled out SIX.
SIXCH, gear, GAR consultant.com.
I love it. And we'll link to that in the notes, and we'll link to your book also. Well, this really has been so fascinating. And, this is why I set a timer, because if I didn't, we'd miss dinner. Right. So, I do hope to have you on again. But until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
No, I just like to tell people, just every day, wake up, ask yourself, what can you do to make the people around you better? And I will stay with that drum beat. And once you find your main thing, you just stick with your main thing, continue to communicate that message to people, and then learn how to act, learn how to appreciate, communicate, and trust, so people feel like they're connected and belong to your organization. So my why is for people to really appreciate one another.
I love it. So much fun. Well, I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a great discussion with Dr. Anthony Simmons, formerly of the Navy. Again, thank you so much for your service. He is now the founder and president of Sixth Gear Consulting. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.